Right, we're going to call to order then this emergency meeting of the West Sacramento City Council at 3:30 p.m. on Monday, June 1st, 2020, for the purpose of discussing the demonstrations currently taking place in the greater Sacramento area, the threat of violence and looting escalating from those demonstrations affecting West Sacramento, and conforming with emergency actions by the city of Sacramento. Pursuant to the governor's executive order N-29-20, we are meeting with staff via teleconference and have been accepting public comments for the emergency meeting through the city clerk's office and the city manager's office, and we'll be posting those shortly as well. Mr. City Attorney, do an emergency meeting is a rare event. Do you wish to add any additional disclosures or other information as we proceed down this?
No, I think the agenda complies with the Brown Act requirements that apply under the circumstances, and we're ready to go.
All right, thank you. All right, and I also want to thank the members of the council and our staff team, our emergency team, for convening on such short notice, given the nature of the emergency and the need for both immediate action, but also for the policy control by the democratic portion of the government here. And so really appreciate that effort. So Mr. City Attorney, is it appropriate to recess to closed session at this point, or should we move to item 1 and then do so?
You can recess the closed session now. You need a 2/3 vote.
Okay. All right, so the request from the city manager is that we recess into closed session in order to pursuant to the government code section that deals with the threat to security to public buildings and essential public services and facilities. And so I would ask if there's a motion to do so.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, that's been moved by Mr. Ledesma and seconded by Ms. Orozco. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin. Aye. Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries 5-0, and so we'll now recess into closed session. That will take a moment for that to occur on a technical basis. So either Mr. Manager or Madam Clerk wishes to give us additional directions if we need to, or when we are ready to proceed. All right, so we're reconvening the open session for our emergency meeting of June 1st. And so we're on item 1, which is consideration of resolution 20-65 proclaiming a local emergency and imposing a curfew. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will briefly summarize. We have on the table a proposed proclamation of local emergency and a imposition of a curfew within the city. We are the main goal of this, aside from all the reasons to better protect people and public safety of people and property, is to have operational alignment with the city of Sacramento, making sure that we have the same requirements in effect that they do, given our proximity to sort of the epicenter where this activity has been happening. So to that end, we would recommend that we impose the curfew to begin at 8 o'clock tonight and would end at 5 a.m. Each morning. It would be in place indefinitely as the resolution reads until either it's rescinded by council action or by me in my role as the Emergency Services Director. Other than that, the resolution does have other details about important exemptions to the resolution. Obviously, for people that are first responders, people traveling to and from work, and other exemptions are in there. But other than that, I think that the resolution is pretty self-explanatory. So we would recommend that the council take the action to establish the emergency proclamation and impose the curfew. So if you have any questions for staff, a number of us are here, including both public safety chiefs and, of course, myself. So.
And also just to note that the changes from the published version of the draft resolution, which are, first of all, the time period being from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and the other is to authorize the Director of Emergency Services when necessary or appropriate to preserve public safety to modify the times as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and we have received public comment on the item as well, and that public comment will be provided on the website. We received comments from Michael Smith, Jennifer Rex McCrae, Aaron Merrill, Monique Garcia, Bien Fabian, Charlotte Hallison, and Aaron Gilbert. Those comments are available on the web and also have been provided to each member of the council prior to the meeting. All right, so let's open it to members of the council who wish to comment on the recommended action. All right, Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Aaron, for the update. And I am supportive of this, and I say that with a great deal of thoughtfulness around what this means to public. But unfortunately, some of the unfortunate incidents that have occurred in Sacramento and even in West Sacramento, it's totally understandable that we try to contain a criminal element that is kind of taking advantage of the situation. So what I would say, though, is one of the areas that I wanted to address was, Mr. City Manager, if things need to change. So hours of this, of hours that we use for this is giving you the flexibility to amend the hours. I wanted to propose to the council, Mr. Mayor, that could we also provide you the flexibility, so should times need to change, shift, as maybe that dynamic shift, we want to impose or provide that authority here to the city manager.
So actually, one of the modifications we had proposed was to number 8. So it will read this way. The Director of Emergency Services is authorized to modify the hours of the curfew as he determines may be necessary to protect public safety and to coordinate with the city of Sacramento. So thanks for that question. I did not include that in my remarks.
That's okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Aaron and Chief Strange, for the information. You know, in reviewing, you know, what's been happening in Sacramento and also assessing what's been happening in West Sacramento, I think in getting our police officers to target those areas of need, a curfew would stretch, I think, them a little thinner to try to decipher, you know, enforcement of the curfew among our constituency. And I think there is a need to focus on those areas that where we have seen last night looting occur. And I think that, or destruction or defacing of public property. And, you know, just to triage what is important in protecting our city and our residents, to give the tools that our police department, our public safety individuals need, is to give them the tools that they need, whether it be additional support from the National Guard. One of the recommendations here in the curfew, which is, you know, I'm very supportive, is to draw on other law enforcement agencies to provide the additional support should the Sacramento activities, the negative activities, which is the rioting and the looting, not the protest. I'm supportive of the protests, but it's the rioting and the looting, those things that are a really big risk on the safety of those that are trying to do the right thing and elevate, you know, the concerns around what happened to Mr. George Floyd, and trying to establish a sense of peace and, you know, recognition that we need to improve, making sure that any interaction with the African American community is safely handled. But I don't see a curfew being able to have that necessary tool to, unless, you know, and I strongly encourage the public to stay off the streets at night. And I think on a voluntary basis to do that outreach and that messaging to the community that to stay off the streets, because it isn't, nowadays, it isn't safe, especially in Sacramento. So to state a broad blanket curfew on our entire city, and that then imposes an additional enforcement requirement on our local, law enforcement officers is, I think, an overreach and a stretch, so that, they won't be able to, I think, navigate in a very difficult time on what their priorities should be. And I know we have a very big, city geographically, and I know they need to, go either from all the way up from Walmart, one end of the city, to Target, which was looted, and I hear Walmart's a Target, but, and we won't know until things happen. But I do just want to be able to make sure that our police officers and our firefighters are safe, and they have the resources that they need to be able to be safe and address the public safety issues in our community.
Other comments, discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a really serious decision for us. I think our alignment with the city of West Sacramento and our adjacency, and the need, our duty to protect the people in West Sacramento, I think leads me to the point of knowing that of all the hard decisions we have to make, this one I feel that will protect our folks, and so I'm supportive.
Councilmember Orozco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with my colleagues. It is a very serious decision that we have to make. But our job is to ensure the public safety of this city. And while there are lawful protests and peaceful demonstrations, folks that are expressing their right to express themselves and their message, unfortunately, we've been faced with folks who don't have the same intentions. And based on our need to protect our neighborhoods and our local businesses, as well as the expressions from folks who've reached out to us, both in public comment, but also individually, and looking at the state of our region currently, I think that we have to make this decision to impose a curfew. I think it's the only way that we can preserve the right for folks to peacefully exercise their rights, but also for folks in West Sacramento to live peaceably, knowing that that their interests, the interest in their safety is first and foremost. So I fully support the curfew based on the discussion, as well as a review of the proclamation.
Thank you. Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you, sir. I do support this, and as I said earlier, I take it with a fair amount of humility in making a decision. And I do believe, in consulting with our police chief and with our city manager, that and our just an overall how we protect the public safety is our first priority. Unfortunately, it's this kind of measure isn't one that we feel is necessary to protect the public, protect those from the element that has taken advantage of the situation, the environment we're currently in. And as my colleagues just noted, at a time when people are protesting as they have a right to do, and with a great deal of hurt and pain, and understandably so. And I think we all feel for that, and our values are aligned with that, and understand as elected officials that's part of what we have to listen to and understand, and find a way to work from here to attain some of the things so that all folks in our community, especially those in our African American community and who have felt the pain of these types of injustices. We need to work hard from here on out simultaneously. I think we've found some ways to do that, but we need to be better at that. We are listening to that part too, and at least I am. And tonight, this vote is all about the elements that unfortunately have taken advantage of that current environment and are looking to inflict damage and to businesses, to possibly people, and that's our priority too. And so I think that's one of the things I want to make sure. Again, listening to our police chief, giving them the tools that we need, the overall operation tools align with Sacramento because we know our proximity. We have to, so I think that's the real critical piece that we need to make sure we are. So anyway, I support this and I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to thank the whole council for convening an emergency session this in order to take up these critical issues. This is, as every member of the council said, this is at no time in our history has the city imposed a curfew. At no time has the city considered imposing a curfew in its history. This is an extraordinary moment, and it is an extraordinary moment all over the region and the country. There are hundreds of cities across the country, more than 150 in California alone, that are currently operating under curfews, some as early as 1 o'clock in the afternoon, entire regions doing so. And of course, as of just a few moments ago, the city of Sacramento also voting to impose a curfew within their borders for this same time period. And so respecting, on the one hand, the recommendation of our officers and the chief, requesting that we take action and approve this resolution this evening for operational purposes in order to maximize their ability to do their job and to protect people and communities in West Sacramento, but also to keep people out of harm's way in our community, and so that folks that are engaged in illicit and dangerous and violent activities will stand out, because the rest of us are home, that we're staying home, and this is not a stay-at-home order. It's not a shelter-in-place order as we've dealt with through COVID. This is not a lifestyle change, but it is necessary. It is absolutely necessary tonight. It may be necessary tomorrow night, and that is the extent of it. And it requires that all of us come together for the purpose of maximizing the ability of our community and our police department and others to assure our safety, and just as importantly, to make the voices that are rising up around the region, but especially here in West Sacramento. Folks who I've seen, community members who've never been politically active or have never worked on an issue like this before, have never tried to speak out about racism or law enforcement or anything else. They're just good members of the Rotary Club, or they volunteer for the at the raffle fundraiser for the nonprofits in the community, or the next thing they're going to do is go work at the fireworks booth for the local church. Those are the folks that are stepping forward, and their voices are being drowned out by the crimes that are being committed in their names. Part of what I hope we accomplish in terms of making our community safe is to return the focus where it belongs, where it must be, in a moment in our nation's evolution in our community, where we are finally focusing on deep, profound, urgent actions in order to do something about the legacy of racism as it expresses itself in so many domains, including but not limited to the challenges that we've faced as a country in law enforcement. And the only way to focus there again is to not have our cities be on fire every night, and to have spending every morning cleaning up and trying to rebuild the damage. And that is why we must proceed with the curfew. It's why we're coming to the same conclusion as virtually every other urban city in America and in this state, and following the recommendation of our department and our chief and our officers. And I would just also commend our department and our officers. This is we had on Saturday a major portion of the protests and the demonstrations that have been ongoing at virtually every hour proceeded into West Sacramento, across the Tower Bridge, a few yards away from my own house. It was a loud, peaceful but determined, fearless, courageous demonstration. And both the demonstrators and our police department did their jobs, and they did them effectively. There were no altercations, no incidents. That's reflective of both our department and its history. We haven't had officer-involved shootings. We don't have that same legacy that I know there's so much concern about in other parts of the region and the country, but also on the part of the demonstrators and the protesters to stay laser focused on, yes, disruption, and yes, on being loud and not necessarily being peaceful, but also not destroying the very communities from which the marchers and demonstrators come. And so I want to commend the chief and the department who have been working very hard to do that, but also residents of our community who whatever side of the issue that they're on, those who have come out to protest and to march and to demonstrate have done so with great moral clarity, with a lot of humility and reflection. And part of what I hope to do tonight is that we will let their voices be heard and their hearts and souls shine through this experience, while we also protect the communities that we're sworn to do where we're sworn to do so. So I want is there further discussion or motion on the item? Councilmember Guerrero?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, with incredible reluctance, I am going to vote for this, and that's only because of the optics, and that people have this idea that a curfew is going to provide a sense of security, given that we need to have a sense of alignment with Sacramento. However, I don't believe that's going to be the case. I don't think that would actually attribute to making sure that we are safer. I think having our police do what they do in, what they would have done without a curfew. And I think that they would be able to do the job very well and effectively without that, as they have been.
Councilmember Orozco?
Unless there's further discussion, I was going to move the item.
I'll second.
And seconded. Moved by Councilmember Orozco and seconded by Councilmember Ledesma. I would just say, I spoke earlier today.
Mr. Mayor, is that what they changed, the amendments and the?
Yes, with the revised recommended action out of the closed session. That I spoke earlier today with the mayor of Denver, who indicated that their curfew, as one example of many across the country, has had a significant impact, both in the effectiveness of their enforcement activities, but in the raw amount of crimes and violence and violations in those communities. But also that this curfew order, in alignment with the city of Sacramento, we are already fully coordinated with the city of Sacramento. There is no separate, fully separate response. We are working hand in hand with the city. We have office leadership embedded in their operations center, and we rely on them and they on us in this situation. And so it isn't, for me, this is not about optics at all of coordination. It is about making sure that our core partners, the folks that we're working with moment to moment in this operation, that we are in alignment, and also that our residents have a clear message about what they can do in order to contribute to keeping our officers and our community and themselves safe tonight and maybe tomorrow night. But it's really about making sure that we all know it's not whether or not I'm going to get arrested for violating the curfew. It is knowing and having the city be clear with me that we are in solidarity tonight to stand up to protect our community's safety and let those voices be heard. All right, seeing no further question or debate, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt the modified resolution from closed session?
Certainly. Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so that motion carries. Thank you again to the council for the very extensive discussion here, but also in closed session with a lot of questions and a lot of the issues that have been raised this evening explored and answered as well. And thank you again to our entire executive leadership team and to members of the community as we've not pivoted. We're still in the midst of the COVID-19 situation as well, but we're asking so much of our staff, of our departments, of ourselves, of our community, of our neighbors, of our families. The one thing that we do know is that West Sacramento will, as we always have, rise to the occasion. We'll do so together. And please, that's our last item for tonight. So please be safe tonight. Let's pray for each other and for our officers on the street. All right, Mr. City Manager, Mr. City Attorney, do we need a motion to adjourn, or we don't have an item to adjourn tonight, so I'm just checking with you.
No, you don't really need a motion to adjourn. I think this is the one item on tonight's agenda.
All right, then with that, the meeting will stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.